Nero, who is calling from Tennessee, wants to talk to us about the law of attraction. We put in our chat poll, those who are listening in the audio format, is the law of attraction a real thing? Yes or no? And I think Nero wants to talk about that a little bit. Nero, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Hey, Dan. Hey, Calvin. Longtime fan, atheist. Love the show, and great to see both y'all on here.
Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having us. What can we do for you?
Yeah. So the law of attraction, I've got a little bit of history with it. When I moved out of Christianity into eclectic paganism, just kind of like a mishmash of different things out of that, they have sort of their own version they call the Threefold Law, which for mostly tradition reasons is this idea that whatever you put out into the world comes back threefold to you, whether it be positive or negative.
Okay.
I never bought into like the idea that you can use magic to do this. There are a lot of groups that do. But like I've got my Book of Shadows right here from when I practiced. I've got Buckland's Book of Witchcraft, and I spent about 3 years practicing and taking intensive notes, and magic does not bring you any sort of results like that.
But so you did the science. You were like, hey, I'm going to do an experiment here and see what changes in the next 3 years of my life. And it did not change anything. That's crazy. Yeah. Wow.
No, I practiced absolutely devoutly for about 3 years with it, and not a thing came out of that. But what I did come across is that there is a group, or there is a selection of believers who treat the Threefold Law basically as an extension of positive psychology. So from that point of view, there very much is a lot of support for that sort of idea, that you keep a positive mindset, you do good acts in the world, and generally that brings back goodness to you, which I don't think when we look at how, I should say I did at the same time did 3 years of informal training in cognitive behavioral therapy. And there is very much support for this idea of making a positive mindset, turning that into positive action, and that brings positive results for you and your life.
I mean, yeah. I would kind of push back on that a little bit, because it's like, how, so I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, are you saying that if you have a positive mindset about, let's say maybe you have low finances, maybe you have a positive mindset that you're going to grow your wallet over the next, X amount of time. Are you saying that generally that will come to happen? Like your wallet will grow if you kind of, I guess, manifest the idea that that's going to happen?
Well, no, it takes a lot more than just wanting it to be or wanting to have a good mindset about it. It's more about the people who generally go to this interpretation of the Threefold Law believe that magic is taking that positive mindset that you create and turning it into action, or turning it into an actual influence on the world. And magic is basically roughly the process of that influence affecting the world in a positive way, and then sort of coming back to you in like, you help people, they help you back. You help the environment is healthier for you, sort of deal.
But that isn't always the case, is it? I mean, what about the homeless guy on the street? I'm sure he, was truly doing his best to, have a positive mindset in, whatever case it might be. And, it seems like he's kind of stuck, in some, I could even say for myself that there's been times in my life where I've, had a positive mindset through it. I'm going to get through it. And, in some cases I didn't really get through it. So, I guess, sure, it's a general, like maybe generally this will happen. It will, come to manifest. That's kind of the word that I go to, because that's kind of the word that I tend to hear a lot of the time is you manifest, what is, I guess not necessarily what you want to happen, but what you feel is best to happen. And that doesn't seem to always be the case. So I'm just not sure how you came to believe this. Is there a reason why you do believe it other than just wanting it to be true?
maybe it's a little bit of like hopefulness held over. But I do think even when you don't receive like direct positive impact, there's still this idea in a lot of neo-paganism that you hear it from a lot of the modern spiritualists, that there's like interconnectedness between people. And in some degrees, whether you're talking about social situations or you're talking about just the well-being of humanity as a whole, there is at least some degree of whether or not you personally benefit, you as a part of humanity benefits, or humanity benefits as a part of you. And like I said, it's not a perfect thing. I just didn't know whether there'd be any pagans or Wiccans or anyone that wanted to come on and give that side of it. But I do think there's an interesting overlap in how some people will use it as this spiritual woo, literal magic sense. And then there's people who treat it as more just, like I said, an extension of positive psychology. I'm no expert on it. I'm no psychologist. And it's been about 4 years since I practiced. But I just wanted to put that in there.
Yeah, it's interesting because Wiccan beliefs, and I mean, applying this to New Age stuff in general, some people ask, why don't we talk more about Wicca stuff? And it's like, well, it's really complicated. There's a lot of different ideas. And also, like, you talk to 5 different Wiccans, you'll get 10 different ideas. I mean, like, it's such an individualized philosophy for some. There are some that literally believe you're affecting the forces of nature and that magic is a real force in the world. And there's some, like you said, who are sort of treating these systems as sort of metaphors for, what could be described as a more, I don't want to say secular, but a sort of more grounded reality, which is, hey, if you think more positively about situations, your outcome will be more positive, right? Which is like, that's a bit more general. That's a bit more agreeable, right? To me, I'm the kind of person that's like, well, why do you need the magic? Why do you need these extra layers to the system? Why not just kind of boil it down to brass parts? But at the same time, I have to think, well, if I'm a therapist and a client comes to me and says, hey, I have this system of magic and it helps me get through my day and it's really great and it's not hurting anybody and it's doing my best for me, am I going to be the guy that's tearing that down and say, hey, actually, this is bullshit and you shouldn't think that way? I mean, maybe I would encourage the more agreeable parts, right? Yeah, if you think positively, your outlook's going to be better. Sure. But it's kind of difficult for me to talk about that, No,
that's fair. I think the thing that might have appealed to me the most was during the cognitive behavioral therapy training, there's this talk of like a big part of it is dealing with addictions. And so we talk about rituals, which we talk about them in the sense of there are these things you do repeatedly over and over, and they reinforce behaviors or thoughts or emotions that you have connected to them. So like someone who has an alcohol problem might listen to a certain song and then before they go out to drink, like it's always the same song. It's always the same route to the bar, that there's this reinforcing mechanism behind it. And so I think the ritual or the formalism behind quote unquote magic in the practice, I think is meant, at least for the psychologically inclined pagans, to be like that reinforcement mechanism to help them build that positive mindset. Like I said, whether or not you actually receive direct positive benefits, it could easily be argued that having a better mindset in and of itself is a self-building benefit.
Sure.
But I don't want to drag that on too much, because I know the law of attraction holds a lot more weight in the other sense of being this mystical thing.
Well, I think that's why the law of attraction has its attraction, right? Like, why did The Secret become one of the most best sold books of the century? It's because people struggle with their idea of self, their idea of like what they want. And this is a way to kind of change that. Instead of getting the things that you want, it's changing what you want, which is like, I mean, that in itself is a good thing. I won't deny the positive benefits there, but there's also the other side of it, which is, hey, you're actually manipulating like the universe with just your brain, which, you know, I don't know that I could agree with.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't side on that, which, all said, I never met a single Wiccan who ever tried to use any of that for any negative means. So I think it's sort of like you said earlier, you're not hurting anybody. I'm not really going to push you to stop what you're doing.
Yeah. I will say I have had, and there's been people who have been on the show who have talked about their own Wiccan experiences, right? And some being from more, let's say, closed off groups, maybe a little bit, I don't want to say cults, but a little bit more high control that does exist. But also, most of my Wiccan callers, to be honest, are pretty chill. So, you know, it just, that's what happens, right? It's hard. You can't really regulate these ideas. I think that's the big problem with it, right? If everybody's open to everything, what can you say is right and what can you say is wrong at that point? I don't know. There is something about that it makes it, again, just hard to talk about, because I don't want to take away somebody's good thing. If this has been a beneficial mindset to you, and it clearly has been, and you're right, I agree with you, a positive outlook is a great thing to have. It's hard for me to just be like, oh, you should, you know, actually throw this all away. But I mean, you're clearly more skeptical about it, so I'm not really worried about that. Right. I'm more worried about the folks who are taking this so far that, oh, they didn't do their ritual today. They think that the universe isn't going to work out the way that they want it to, and, you know, isn't going to do the thing. Right. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to drag you guys through this call much longer. I will definitely want to hear what some other people have to say. So I'm gonna let you go with that.
Perfect, Nero. Thanks so much for calling. What a great way to talk to us. Yeah. Thanks so much.